Yahshua said, "My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in your weakness." What was he talking about? Let's see what the audio reveals. Come on. Shalom, my friends. Corinthians 2, that's 2 Corinthians, chapter 12, verse 9 specifically. Dan asked me to do this study. Thank you, Dan. I'm going to back up to verse 6 in chapter 12. Shaul, that's Paul, saying, "For if I shall want to boast, I shall not be a fool, for I shall speak the truth. But I refrain, lest anyone should think more of me than what he sees in me or hears of me." I'm reading from the HalleluYah Scriptures, a little bit different than what you might be used to. Better done. Verse 7, "And to keep me from exalting myself, because of the exceeding greatness of the revelations, a thorn," samech, a thorn in the flesh was given to me, a messenger of Satan to hit me, to keep me from exalting myself. A lot of people, by the way, wonder what that thorn was that Shaul had. I tend to think it was his eyesight. We see in various places in the Word that Shaul had trouble with his eyes. He had trouble recognizing certain people in one place, and we see and we know that his signature was large. And there's another place where he says to some of the believers, I know that some of you would have something to the effect like they would have given him their eyes if they could. And he was blinded on the road to Damascus, and he had trouble with his eyes, and I think that's what he's talking about here. Anyway, to get on with our study, verse 8, "Concerning this, I pleaded with the Adon 3 times to take it away from me. And he said to me, my favor," you might be more familiar with seeing my grace, "is sufficient for you. For my power is perfected in weakness. Most gladly, then, I shall rather boast," Shaul talking again, "in my weaknesses, so that the power of Mashiach rests in me. Therefore I take pleasure in weaknesses, in insults, in needs, in persecutions, in distresses, for the sake of Mashiach. For when I am weak, then I am strong." Really, what he's saying is that when he's weak, the power of Yahshua is manifest. So, Dan asked me to clarify what the audio has to say, where he says, "My grace is sufficient for you. My power is perfected in weakness." Now, I've done a study previously on the word grace. You can go back and maybe check that one out. But let's take a look at this slide for the word grace. It's the word chana in the Aramaic Hebrew. The Aramaic has another word, but I thought I would, in this case, use the same word that we see in the first covenant books, and that is the word chana. It is, it's spelled chet, nun, he, and pronounced chana. Now, chet is a picture of the fence. It divides things. It protects and surrounds you. It represents the resurrection, the nechetef and chai, and the operation of the gifts of the ruach. In this case, it's more focusing on dividing, protecting, and surrounding, and the operation of the gifts of the ruach. I'll get to that in a minute. The heart of the word is the oat nun. It's a picture of the seed. Represents life. Perpetual, unstoppable motion. Has to do with offsprings and heirs. And finally we have Hey. Man with his arms raised. Being in awe and worshiping Elohim, and has to do with the fifth dimension of spirit. So when Yahshua says, my grace is sufficient for you, my favor is sufficient for you, he's saying, my chana is sufficient for you. Chet, the fact that I've separated you from the world, the fact that I have my fence around you, protecting you, and the fact that the gifts of the Ruach are operating in you, that's sufficient. The fact that you are my seed, and your growth in me is unstoppable and perpetual. You are my heir. That's sufficient. And again, with Hey, it's, the fifth dimension of spirit, I think, is pointing back to the gifts of the Ruach operating in Shaul. That is sufficient for you. Now, let's go to the next slide for the word sufficient. And this one I got from the Aramaic English New Testament. Now here, this is the Aramaic word sapka, spelled samech, pei, and kuf. Here's where, he's saying sufficient. My chana is sapka. We have samech, picture of a thorn. A thorn is a sharp and a piercing shield. It represents Elohim's hedge of protection. Again, we're talking about that. Similar to chet, which is a fence that surrounds. Samech is a thorny hedge of protection. Elohim's Gader HaKodesh, his hedge of dedication. It's a protective hedge. Samech, the thorn, it grabs and it holds, it attaches itself to you. It also has to do with infinity and limitlessness. So he says, my chana is sufficient. This is the English word. My chana is a hedge of protection for you. It doesn't let go of you, and it is limitless, infinitely limitless. Pei is the mouth. It represents speaking, praising, to blow. There's that one spot in one of the Gospels where Yahshua says to his Talmudim, receive the Ruach, and he breathes on them. That's pay. And it represents being on the edge, like on a shore, on the edge of something. My chana not only protects you, is your hedge of protection, and not only is it infinitely limitless, but it speaks to you. It puts you on the edge of things, appropriately so, because I want you to let go of the flesh and the things of the world. And then kuf. This is the oat that really points at, in this case, kadam, going back to the beginning. Kuf is a picture of the sun at the horizon. In this case, it's talking about the sun rising and shining light into and dispelling the darkness. It also talks about cycles. So he's saying my kana is it protects you infinitely, and it speaks to your ruach, small r, and it brings you and turns you back to Kadam, back to the Father, back to the beginning, back to the light and away from the darkness. And then he says, my power is made perfect in your weakness. Let's look at the word for power. Again, this time I went to the first covenant for the Aramaic Hebrew there, and we have the word koach, spelled kaf and chet. He's talking about his power. Now, this is interesting, because in the English you think of Yeshua's power, and you think of him, participating with the Father in the creation of all things. You think about the fact that Yeshua's power holds all things together in the universe. And that's the Western mindset. That's the English word, power. Here we're going to see with koach how he receives all that power from the Father. The first oat is kaf. It's an open palm. It talks about bending and allowing and opening yourself. It talks about taming and subduing yourself. It talks about the work of Yeshua. You might say the power of Yeshua. And it has to do with the filling of the Ruach, not the receiving of the Ruach. It's talking about after the Ruach is indwelling in someone. It's talking about the filling, the growing of the Ruach in a person. So, Yeshua, why does he have so much power? It's from the Father. As he said, I came not to glorify myself, but to glorify the Father. Why? He's always thinking about the Father. Well, how does he get this power? Because he bends, he bows to the Father, he bends, he allows the Father, he opens to the Father's will. Not my will, Father, but yours be done, he said. He tames and subdues himself to bend and allow the Father's will to be done. And that is what the power of Yeshua is all about. And when we act in that same manner, Paul is saying, take this away from me. And Yahshua is saying, no, you bend, you bow to that, you allow it, you open to it, tame yourself, subdue that frustration that you feel about this thorn in your flesh, and then watch how my work flowers in you. Watch how the filling of the Ruach comes to you through that taming and subduing. And then Chet, again, is the fence which protects and surrounds. But in this case, I think especially talks about the operation of the spiritual gifts. Yeshua says, my chana is safcha to you, and my work and my power, which is all about kaf and chet, all about taming and subduing, the way he tames and subdues himself to the Father, the way he bends and allows and opens to the Father, and that causes the filling of the Ruach, all that's kaf. And then chet is the operation of the gifts of the Ruach. All of that is what his power is all about. His chana is sufficient, and his power, all that we just talked about, is made perfect in your weakness. Let's see what the word is for made perfect. Those two English words come from one word. For this one, I went to the Aramaic English New Testament, and this is an Aramaic word, metgamar. We have 5 letters on this one. We have mem, tau, gimel, mem, resh. Now, Yeshua is saying, my power is metgamar, made perfect. What does he mean? His power is metgamar, through our weakness. Metgamar, mem, has to do with the word, has to do with the blood of Yeshua that purchases us and saves us. It has to do with mightiness. Then we look at tau. It's a mark, a sign, a monument, a signature. Go to Gimel, picture of a foot. Again, points at Ruach HaKodesh, Father's dedicated Spirit, Ruach. Has to do with our walk. That's why it's a picture of a foot. That has to do with gathering and herding sheep. Has to do with the being a messenger. Romans 10:15. How pleasant are the feet of those who bring the good news. Then it's mem again. The water, the word, Yeshua's blood, mightiness, as in the size of the sea. And finally, resh, a man's head, having to do with headship, having to do with thoughts, the mind of Mashiach. So how do we put this together? My power is metgamar, in your weakness. My power is made mighty, mem, in your weakness. My power marks a location, marks an experience. It's a sign, it's a monument about your weakness. Tau, Gimel. It's a message. It's a it gathers you. It straightens out your walk. And again, mem is brought up again. It's between Gimel and Resh. So it's talking about Yeshua, the Word, the blood, his mightiness, operating in your walk, through your weakness, because of Resh, when your thoughts are turned to him as your headship, when your thoughts are made to be His thoughts. That's all together talking about what Met Gamar is, the mightiness of Yahshua being a mark and a sign in your walk because of what He does and because of what He has done, and how it turns your thoughts to Him as your headship. His power is Met Gamar in your weakness or through your weakness. Who He is revealed through our weakness. And Shaul, realizing the depth of what Yahshua was saying, says, "Therefore, I take pleasure in my weaknesses, in insults, in needs, in persecutions, in distresses, for the sake of Mashiach. For when I am weak, then I am strong." In other words, because he recognizes the value of what Yahshua is saying, then when he's weak, he's made strong by turning to Yahshua as his headship and seeing how his walk, his own personal walk, is made straight, how he is protected and surrounded, how it causes the gifts of the Ruach to flourish in his own life, how it causes him to grow in his knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of Elohim. Consider this, my friends. Shaul, Paul, was one of the most murderous when it came to persecuting believers in Yahshua. He was out there searching them out and killing them before he was met by Yahshua on the road to Damascus. Elohim chose the weakest of them all to proclaim more than any other the good news. Why does the Father do things like this? Because He wants to make it known to us that all good things are from Him. His power, His koach, is made evident through our weakness. That's that, my friends. I hope this teaching, this video, has been a berekah to you. Shalom.
Say a prayer, but it wouldn't make any difference. Yeah, 'cause I could tell the truth, and you wouldn't believe. I'm standing here shining this light when you close your eyes. You gotta make your second chance. The music plays, but you refuse to dance.